Independence and the ability to bring out the vote.
The numbers.
It's got the tyranny. You know, the tyranny of numbers.
Yeah.
It's actually tyranny of turnout. It's not about tyranny of numbers. If you look, if you are to do the mathematical calculations about the voters that are locked, and I say locked in quotes, actually the Jubilee side and the whatever side, the difference is not that significant. And by the way, even in 2013, the difference was not that significant. But if you check turnout, what determined the elections in 2013 was actually more turnout than registration. And I suspect it's even more this year.
So when NASA says they have 10 million votes in the bag, is that a realistic number?
I think the 10 million is overstated, whichever way you look at it. It's overstated. And obviously when you campaign, in political terms, you've got to present your best case forward. You know what I mean? So you can't fault them for saying 10 million. But, you know, realistically, I think because if we had about how many people who voted last time for the ODM card, it's about 5 million?
5.3.
About 5. Where are 5 million people going to come from? Where are those other 5 million people going to come from? From Jubilee zones? From where? Where are those people? So that's not to say that they won't win, but it is to say that 10 million is ambitious, but it's a good thing. I mean, politicians are made of the ambitious material. So they've got to encourage their people to get to the 10 million. The problem, I think, is the problem with the 10 million number is that it can also be the basis of a lot of disappointment. You know what I mean? And especially if you hit it very, very low. You know, because I would rather that you present a number that is realistic and that can be aimed for, and that you can actually get to. But in terms of their political strategy, they probably believe 10 million is a good number to throw to the people.
Wow. If they don't come anywhere near 10 million, like you said, it will be a disappointment. It
will be a major disappointment, and it can be like, you remember the Okoa Kenya referendum. ODM had said they were going to get about 7 million people because they were saying those are the people who voted for them but were stolen. So they are now going to make the point, you know, that this election was a stolen election. When you then have a challenge getting to 1 million, you discourage your base. So you've always got to be very careful about numbers. Yeah.
Before we move on, do you think they will get as many as they're saying 50 in Parliament?
I am doubtful. I am doubtful. I think independents are useful for the get out and vote. But I doubt that many of them are going to win. That's a reality.
Okay, but there will be a force.
There will be a force. There will be a force. There will be a force. But remember also, what we are forgetting is the reason why they become independent is not because they are independent. It's because of the party hopping law. They had nowhere else to go. In previous times, when you lost your nomination, you look for another party. I remember this man of Kalembe Ndile. That party used to have a van below Anniversary Towers. You know, where if you couldn't get any other party, you went down and you got a certificate and you went to wrap a tip ticket. So it's not like it's a new phenomenon in the sense that we have independent, we never had them before. It's just that last time they went to parties. Did those parties make a huge difference? Because it's the same people, it's the same thing. And by the way, the nominations this year, the party nominations, they may be shambolic, but they were actually an improvement from 2013. We keep improving. And even where they were shambolic, Jeff, generally, they reflected where people were. They actually reflected the will, generally, with exceptions. They reflected.
When Jakoyo Midiwo says he was rigged out,
yes.
Was that fair?
No, because I was not there, I can't know for sure. The only thing I can tell you is that rigging does happen. That's real. Yes. Rigging does happen. And sometimes the only way you will know is on the final election day. What, however, I suspect is that even particularly in some zones, in the core zones, the core Jubilee zones and the core NASA zones, once you have won the nomination, there's a certain benefit that comes from that ticket.
One leg in.
One leg is in. Now, the other person still has both their legs outside. It's going to be a little more difficult for them. You know, it's going to be a lot more difficult. And let me tell you, if you are rigged in the nomination, I suspect that it is very possible for you to be managed even at the final election.
Okay, so what's the thinking behind people like Governor Kabogo and Peter Kenneth, who were resoundingly beaten? They claimed they were rigged out and still want to come back in.
Now, both of these gentlemen are good friends of mine. The truth of the matter is that, and you can call me here on August 10th, they are not going to win.
They're not.
In fact, if anything, it is very possible for you to be embarrassed even further. Because remember, if you go to Kiambu, and Jeff, you come from Kiambu.
Yes.
There was, and you know, I mean, with all due respect to Ganwa Kabogo, and I know he has done a lot of work in Kiambu, there was an anti-Kabogo vote more than there was a pro-82 vote.
Correct.
You know, for whatever reason, there was a very strong vote. And there people wanted to make a statement. And that was true in very many parts in central Kenya. If you watch the voting patterns in central Kenya, they were very clear. If you presented yourself, there are two things that people reacted against. One was the feeling that you were presenting yourself as a favored candidate by whoever you are presenting yourself with. People voted against you. Number two, if they felt that you had been arrogant and looked down on them and dismissed them, you paid a heavy price. If you are incompetent, you paid a price. That is why you'll find in some places, Mwangi wa Iria wins convincingly in Murang'a. In the neighboring county, Governor Joseph Dutt is number 4. He gets 17,000 votes when the winners are getting 100 plus. Now, what is the difference between those two? It is not that they didn't use money. It is not that. What is the difference? Is that people know a competent governor and one who's not competent. So in a sense, let us not dismiss the sophistication of the voter and assume that the only way you can be beaten is if elections are rigged.
But Peter still thinks he can win.
Peter thinks he can win, but I think what he will do is make it difficult for Jubilee to win the seat. That is actually what is going to happen.
Which is going to make it very easy for Kidero to...
Which is going to be very good for Kidero to get back. So in a sense, and you see, the thing about, if you compare Mike Sonko's strategy and Governor Waititu's strategy for last time, Mike Sonko has done two things. One is he has rebranded himself. You know what I mean? He has, so that he makes himself more acceptable to Jalango and Jeff Koinange. You know, he's shown away the earring. You know, looks a lot more suave. And then he has picked, you know, someone who most people who rejected Ferdinand Waititu last time and voted for Kidero, you know, would be comfortable with Polycarp Igathe. Now, if Peter Kenneth had not been there, the competition between Kidero and Sonko would have been a real competition. The minute you bring in the Peter Kenneth factor, it can be, because remember, we're talking about if all you need to do is lose some 200, 300,000 votes, because there'll still be a few people who will be loyal to Peter Kenneth. If you do that, the price who will pay the price is actually Jubilee. So that's just the reality that these people have to deal with.
So PK is being a spoiler, is that it?
I believe he goes in there genuinely believing he was wronged. You know, and you know, I love politicians, we know that they're our friends. You know, there's a way in which politicians see the world that you and I don't see the world that way, you know. And you always have people around you who tell you and who affirm that position. But if you were to look objectively, it's to say at this point, can you imagine a scenario, where PK would actually be able to beat both Sonko and Kidero to win the governorship? It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. In this Nairobi, it's very, very difficult. His best chance would have been at the nomination. That's when he would have made an impact.
Absolutely. We're speaking live to Kamola Waiganjo, lawyer, political analyst. He's calling it like he sees it. By the way, we're going to take a break, come back and talk about the red-carded politicians by the NGO. They were red-carded. Should they run for office?